Welcome to our channel History of Coins, where we explore the hidden gems of numismatics. In today's video, we're diving into the fascinating world of rare quarter-dollar coins, cause some of these coins hold an incredible history, and some are worth millions. So today, we are gonna uncover the rarest varieties and their values. So make sure to watch the complete video and find out if you have one of these. Now let's continue our today's video. On top one today, we have something truly special to talk about. A coin that many of you might have sitting in your collection or maybe even tucked away in a jar somewhere. It's the 1965 United States quarter dollar. At first glance, it might seem like just another coin, but trust me, this particular quarter could be worth a small fortune. Stick around, and you'll be amazed by just how much this 1965 quarter could potentially bring in today's market. Let's start with a little bit of history. In 1965, the United States was undergoing significant changes, not just in terms of the economy, but also in the world of coinage. The country was in the midst of a transition away from silver in many of its coins. The price of silver was rising rapidly, and in an effort to save money, the U.S. Mint began issuing coins with a copper-nickel composition rather than the traditional silver. But here's where it gets interesting. While most of the quarters produced in 1965 were made with this new copper-nickel blend, there was a small batch of quarters that were accidentally struck with silver. Yes, that's right. Some 1965 quarters were minted with the very material they were supposed to be transitioning away from. And that's the coin we're talking about today. The 1965 silver quarter is a rare mistake, and collectors are absolutely hunting for it. Now, you might be wondering, how do I know if I have one of these silver 1965 quarters? Great question. It's not as easy as just looking at the date. In fact, these quarters look almost identical to the standard 1965 quarters made from the copper-nickel alloy. But there's a way to tell the difference, and it's all about the sound. If you hold your quarter and gently tap it with another metal object, the sound will tell you whether it's made of copper-nickel or silver. Silver quarters tend to have a higher pitched ring, while the copper-nickel ones sound duller. You can also weigh the coin. The silver version weighs around 6.25 grams, whereas the copper-nickel variety weighs about 5.67 grams. Now, here's the kicker. Because these silver quarters were struck in error, they are incredibly rare. While the U.S. Mint produced millions of quarters that year, only a very limited number of them were made from silver. The number of these silver 1965 quarters still in circulation is extremely low, which has caused their value to skyrocket among collectors. So if you have one of these coins, you're sitting on a potential treasure. What makes these coins even more valuable is the fact that they are not only rare, but they're also highly coveted by coin collectors. People are always on the lookout for minting errors like this, and the silver 1965 quarter is one of the most well-known and sought-after mistakes in U.S. coin history. The fact that it represents a significant turning point in U.S. coinage only adds to its allure. So, how much could a 1965 silver quarter actually be worth? If you have one in great condition, especially one that's well-preserved and not overly worn from circulation, you could be looking at a value that's well beyond what most people would expect. In fact, depending on its condition and whether it has been certified by a grading service, a 1965 silver quarter can fetch up to $79,000. Yes, you heard that right, $79,000. That's a lot of money for a single coin, and it goes to show just how much collectors are willing to pay for these rare finds. Imagine stumbling upon one of these in a change jar or in your coin collection. It could completely change your financial future. So, if you happen to have a 1965 quarter, make sure to check it carefully. Weigh it, listen to it, and get it checked by a professional if you're uncertain. You might just have a rare piece of U.S. history in your hands, one that could bring in an unbelievable amount of money. On top two, we've got an absolute gem to talk about, the 1970 United States quarter dollar. Now, you might think that a 1970 quarter is just another piece of pocket change, but wait until you hear the story behind this coin. What you're about to discover might just surprise you. So, let's take a trip back to 1970. The United States was going through a lot of changes during this time, not only in the world of politics and culture, but also in the realm of coinage. The country was still producing coins made from silver, but there were changes on the horizon. The U.S. Mint had started transitioning its coinage from silver to copper-nickel alloys, with the intent to save on the rising cost of silver. And while this change was already in motion, the 1970 quarter stands out for a very specific reason. The 1970 quarter was the last year the U.S. Mint produced 90% silver quarters for circulation, and it was only for a small batch. While most of the quarters minted that year were made from the new copper-nickel blend, there was a limited number that still contained silver. These silver quarters weren't meant to be released to the public. They were supposed to be held back for coin sets that were sold directly to collectors, but some of them slipped through the cracks and ended up in regular circulation. Now, this is where the fun begins. Imagine walking into a store in 1970 and receiving a quarter in change. Little did you know, you might have just gotten your hands on one of these silver coins. Because the number of silver quarters produced in 1970 was so small, it makes them incredibly rare today. While it's difficult to say exactly how many of these silver quarters were accidentally released into circulation, experts believe there are only a handful left in good condition, and they're highly prized by collectors. Now, you might be asking, how do you know if you found one of these rare silver 1970 quarters? It's not as simple as just looking at the date. The 1970 quarter minted for general circulation looks almost identical to the copper-nickel version, so you'll have to do a little bit of detective work. One of the easiest ways to tell if your quarter is silver is by performing a ping test. When you tap the coin, a silver quarter will make a distinct high-pitched ringing sound, while the copper-nickel version will sound duller. Another way to check is by weighing the coin. A silver 1970 quarter weighs about 6.25 grams, while the copper-nickel version weighs closer to 5.67 grams. If you have a scale, this is an easy way to figure out if your coin is the real deal. But if you're not sure, it's always a good idea to get your coin checked by a professional, as they can authenticate it for you. So, let's get down to the question everyone's probably asking: how much is this coin worth? Well, if you happen to have one of these rare silver 1970 quarters in great condition, especially one that's been well preserved, the value can be absolutely shocking. While most quarters from 1970 aren't worth much more than face value, the silver version can fetch a stunning amount of money on the market. Depending on the condition and whether it has been certified, a silver 1970 quarter could be worth up to $74,000. That's right, $74,000. For just a single coin. This makes the silver 1970 quarter one of the most valuable quarters in U.S. history. And it's no wonder that collectors are constantly on the lookout for one. If you have one of these quarters tucked away in your collection or in a jar somewhere, it could be time to check it over carefully. Who knows? You could have just found a small treasure worth an incredible amount of money. On top 3, we're diving into a coin that's not just any old piece of U.S. currency, the 1973 United States quarter dollar. At first glance, this might seem like just another run-of-the-mill quarter, but hold on. You might be sitting on a small fortune without even knowing it. Stick around as we uncover the mystery and potential value of this fascinating coin. Let's first take a look at what makes the 1973 quarter stand out. By 1973, the U.S. Mint had already started transitioning away from using silver in most coins. The years before this, the U.S. had minted silver quarters, but 1971 marked the end of 90% silver in regular circulation quarters. So, by 1973, most quarters were made of the familiar copper-nickel clad composition. At first, this doesn't seem too exciting, right? But the 1973 quarter is still one you'll want to keep your eyes on. While most of the 1973 quarters are the typical copper-nickel blend, there's a twist. Among them, there were certain quarters that were struck with some rare minting errors. These error coins are where the magic happens. What might look like a standard 1973 quarter could actually be a rare find, and discovering it could make you a lot of money. So, what types of errors are we talking about? Well, some of the 1973 quarters were struck with double-die obverse errors. Double-die errors occur when the coin is struck twice in the same spot, resulting in a blurry or doubled image. This can happen with the lettering, the date, or even the design of the eagle on the reverse. These types of errors can significantly increase the value of the coin because they are extremely rare and add a unique character to the coin. But how can you spot these double-die errors? It's all about paying attention to the details. Check the year on the coin closely. Sometimes the numbers might appear doubled. Look carefully at the letters on the front, especially Liberty and In God We Trust. If you notice any slight doubling or misalignment, it could be a sign you've found an error coin. Another feature that makes the 1973 quarter so interesting to collectors is the condition of the coin. As with any collectible coin, the better the condition, the higher the value. A 1973 quarter that's in pristine, uncirculated condition can fetch a higher price than one that has been worn down over time. If your coin is still shiny and has minimal signs of wear, you might have a real treasure on your hands. But the real excitement comes from the rare, error-struck coins. These are the ones that have collectors clamoring for them. It's not every day that you find a coin from 1973 with a double die or other minting flaw. And that rarity is what makes them so valuable. So, how much could a 1973 quarter with a minting error be worth? If you happen to have one of these error coins, especially if it's in great condition, you could be looking at a price that will leave you speechless. Some of these coins have sold for prices in the tens of thousands of dollars. If you have a high-grade, well-preserved error coin, it could easily fetch as much as $68,000. Yes, that's right, $68,000 for a single quarter. When you think about it, that's a staggering amount of money for something that most people overlook. But this is exactly why it's so important to check your change and carefully examine your coins. You never know, you might just find a rare gem hiding in plain sight. So, if you have a 1973 quarter in your collection, take a moment to give it a closer look. Weigh it, check the condition, and most importantly, look for any possible minting errors. You might be sitting on a rare coin that could be worth a fortune. If you find something special, make sure to get it professionally graded to know exactly what it's worth. On top 4, we're going to talk about something truly remarkable, the 1981 United States quarter dollar. At first glance, this might seem like just another run-of-the-mill quarter, but you'd be surprised how much it could be worth, especially if you know what to look for. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you might just be checking your collection for a hidden treasure. Let's set the scene. It's 1981, and the United States is in the midst of the early 80s, a time marked by inflation and economic changes. The U.S. Mint was hard at work producing quarters, but by this time, the days of silver-filled coins were long gone. The quarter dollar, like most other coins from this era, was made of a copper-nickel composition. These were standard-issue quarters, circulating in large quantities. But just because these coins were produced in the millions doesn't mean there aren't some incredibly valuable ones out there. Here's the twist. While the vast majority of 1981 quarters were minted with the typical copper-nickel alloy, there was a very small group of them that were struck with a unique error. This error makes these 1981 quarters incredibly rare and incredibly valuable. So what's the story behind these coins? The error we're talking about is the famous mismatch or double die error. This happens when a coin is struck multiple times and the second strike misaligns with the first. As a result, the image on the coin appears doubled or misaligned. This type of error is not only rare, but it also gives the coin a distinctive look that collectors can easily spot. Now, let's talk about how to identify these valuable error coins. It's all about looking closely at the design details on the quarter. The most noticeable feature of a double die error on a 1981 quarter is the doubling of the words on the obverse side, specifically the Liberty and "In God We Trust" inscriptions. If you see a noticeable doubling or separation in the lettering, you've likely found one of these rare error coins. You might also notice some doubling in the date, especially the one in the year 1981, which is another telltale sign of the error. So, what does this mean for the value of the 1981 quarter? Well, as you can imagine, a quarter with a noticeable error in its design is worth much more than face value. In fact, these rare error coins can fetch a pretty penny in the right market. If your 1981 quarter has been well preserved, and especially if the error is clearly visible, you could be looking at a small fortune. The value of these rare quarters can soar depending on their condition, with well-preserved examples selling for a jaw-dropping amount. And just how much can a 1981 quarter with a minting error be worth? Prepare to be amazed, because some of these error coins have sold for as much as $62,000. Yes, you heard that right, $62,000. That's a staggering amount of money for a single coin that most people would consider nothing more than pocket change. Imagine finding one of these coins in your change jar or stumbling upon it while going through your collection. It's the kind of moment that makes you double-check every quarter you come across, just in case you've found your own hidden treasure. If you happen to have a 1981 quarter with one of these rare minting errors, it could be the jackpot you've been waiting for. So, how can you ensure you don't miss out on these valuable coins? First, take the time to carefully examine your quarters, especially any older ones from the 1980s. Look closely at the date and the inscriptions, and don't be afraid to use a magnifying glass or a loupe to get a better view. Weigh your coins as well. While the 1981 quarters are typically made from the same copper-nickel alloy as most other quarters, minting errors might slightly affect the weight. And remember, the better the condition of your coin, the higher its potential value. If you find that you've got one of these rare 1981 quarters in your collection, it's a good idea to have it professionally graded and authenticated by a reputable coin grading service. This will give you an accurate idea of its value, and you'll know for sure whether you've hit the jackpot. As you can see, the 1981 United States quarter dollar isn't just another ordinary coin. It could be a hidden treasure worth a significant amount of money. If you've got one of these rare error coins in your collection, you might just be sitting on a small fortune. So don't forget to check your quarters carefully, especially if you have a few old ones lying around. On top 5, we've got something special in store for you, especially if you're into rare and valuable coins. We're going to be talking about a quarter that might just be hiding in your collection, and you probably didn't even realize it. Yes, we're talking about the 1988 United States quarter dollar. Now, you might think, 1988? That's not that old, is it? But trust me, this seemingly ordinary quarter has a hidden value that could blow your mind. The 1988 quarter was minted during a time when the United States was in the midst of the late 80s, an era marked by significant changes in both the country's economy and its currency system. Most of the 1988 quarters were produced with the typical copper-nickel alloy, and they circulated widely in everyday transactions. So why does this particular coin even matter? Well, it's all about rarity, condition, and a very special feature that collectors are on the lookout for. Let's break it down. While the vast majority of 1988 quarters are relatively standard, there's one very important reason this coin stands out. There was a small but notable batch of 1988 quarters that were struck with a unique minting error. As with many rare and valuable coins, it's these errors that make all the difference in the world of coin collecting. One of the most exciting errors for the 1988 quarter is a variety of double die strikes, which is a minting flaw where the coin's design is stamped multiple times, creating a noticeable doubling effect. This doubling usually happens on the inscriptions or other raised areas of the coin, giving it a blurry or shifted look. For the 1988 quarter, the double die error can sometimes be seen on the date and even the Liberty or In God We Trust inscriptions. The error is subtle but incredibly distinctive, and it's highly sought after by collectors. Now, you might be wondering how to spot one of these rare error coins. Well, you'll want to take a close look at the date on the coin. Look for any visible doubling, especially in the 8 of the year 1988. This is a common area where the error appears, but it can also show up in the lettering around the coin. If you see any noticeable separation in the design, it could very well be a double die error. Another key factor in determining whether your 1988 quarter is valuable is its condition. Like all collectible coins, the better the condition, the higher the value. A coin that's been well preserved, with minimal wear and tear, will be worth far more than a coin that's been through heavy circulation. If your 1988 quarter has been kept in a safe place and shows little to no signs of wear, it's in the prime condition collectors are looking for. So now, you're probably wondering just how much this rare 1988 quarter is actually worth. Well, depending on the rarity of the error, its condition, and its demand in the market, a 1988 quarter with a noticeable minting error can fetch a staggering amount. If you happen to have one of these error coins, and it's in excellent condition, you could be looking at a value that will leave you in awe. Some of these rare 1988 quarters have been sold for as much as $55,000. Yes, you heard that correctly. $55,000. That's right. This seemingly ordinary coin from 1988 could be worth a small fortune if it's the right kind of rare error coin. It's hard to believe, but that's the power of coin collecting. When you combine rarity, condition, and the right collector's market, a coin like this can skyrocket in value. So, here's your takeaway. If you've got a 1988 quarter in your collection, take a moment to really examine it. Check for any signs of minting errors, especially any double die strikes. Even if your coin doesn't have an error, a well-preserved 1988 quarter could still hold significant value. Though the ones with errors are where the real treasure lies, if you do find one of these rare quarters, it's always a good idea to get it professionally graded by a reputable coin grading service. This will help you confirm the condition and authenticity of the coin and give you a better understanding of its true value. Thanks for joining me today as we explored the 1988 United States quarter dollar. Who would have thought that such an ordinary coin could be worth so much? I hope this video has inspired you to take a second look at the coins in your collection. You never know what hidden treasures might be just a few quarters away. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about rare and valuable coins, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on future discoveries. Until next time, happy hunting and good luck with your coin collection.